To break a family curse of failed first marriages, a woman devises a plan to marry and divorce a stranger before settling down with her true love. On Christmas Eve in Paris, Corinne invites her recently divorced boss, Valérie, to dinner with her family. However, the guest disrupts the moment with her drama, confessing that she hasn't met anyone good since her divorce. To comfort her, Corinne's mom, Solange, offers to tell a story. Upon hearing this, Solange's husband, Edmond, and her son-in-law, Patrick, show their annoyance. Knowing what the story is about, Corinne then interjects, telling her boss that all the women in their family had unlucky first marriages and had to remarry to be happy. Solange backs this up, explaining that the curse began with her great-grandmother. Corinne's daughter, Louise, chimes in, declaring that she will soon share the same fate. Patrick then agrees, sharing that he and Edmond are the second husbands. Following this, Corinne adds that someone in her family tried to break the curse. It was her older sister. She then narrates the entire story. 10 years ago, Isabelle fell in love with Pierre during the final year of her dentistry studies. Soon, the two formed a romantic relationship and moved in together. From then on, the couple did things with a strict schedule. They had brunch on Sundays, bowled on Mondays, dined at a lavish restaurant on Tuesdays, played Pictionary on Wednesdays, enjoyed tennis on Thursdays, and made love on Fridays. They had that set up for a decade. But one day, Isabelle realized she wanted to have children with Pierre, who agreed to start a family only after they were married. Because of this, Isabelle released her frustration to her family, while Patrick questioned Pierre about pushing for marriage despite knowing about the curse. However, the man expressed his disbelief in superstitions. Corinne then continues the story, describing that she and her sister resorted to a strange plan. To make Pierre her second husband, Isabelle needed a failed first marriage. Corinne then set her up with someone in Copenhagen where people can legally marry and divorce after 10 minutes. Before her flight, Isabelle admitted she told Pierre they were going to a spiritual retreat together. This shocked Corinne, who realized she needed to pretend that she wasn't home. On the plane, Isabelle sat next to a talkative guidebook editor named Jean-Yves, who was going to Kenya but booked a connecting flight to save money. When he asked what she would do in Denmark, she explained that she was marrying a stranger for whom she had paid 5,000 euros. Annoyed with his questions, Isabelle excused herself, putting on her earphones to relax. However, the editor continued talking, even sharing that if he found the love of his life, he'd marry her on the spot. Meanwhile, Corinne hid in the bathroom with her daughter while Patrick distracted Pierre, who'd come to visit. When Patrick noticed that Isabelle was calling, he took the phone immediately and secretly gave it to his wife. During their conversation, Corinne learned that the man she set up with Isabelle didn't show up. Despite this, she urged her sister to be creative and find someone else. Isabelle then glanced at the airport sliding door and spotted Jean-Yves. Recalling his comment about marrying someone immediately, she came up with an idea. She then booked a flight to Nairobi. When she encountered the editor on the line, she told him that her plan to marry someone in Copenhagen earlier was just a joke. During the flight, Isabelle left her seat to be with Jean-Yves. She flirted with him, revealing that she was single and had just broken up with her boyfriend. However, their interaction was cut short when the woman assigned to the seat returned. Before leaving, Isabelle gave the editor a quick kiss. Upon landing in Nairobi, Isabelle quickly searched for Jean-Yves and saw him boarding a bus. She followed him by taxi and watched him get dropped off at a hotel. However, on her way inside the hotel, she fell into the pool. After changing into a robe, she ordered a drink at the bar where she encountered the editor again. When Jean-Yves explained that he wasn't staying at the same hotel, Isabelle canceled her booking and rebooked at his hotel, which turned out to be a budget-friendly lodge. Once there, Isabelle called her husband, lying that she and Corinne were still at the retreat and wouldn't be home soon. After the call, she opened her bag to change her clothes and discovered it wasn't hers. She then asked Jean-Yves to accompany her to a clothing store, where she tried to allure him further by changing into provocative garments. The two then went on a date exploring the town. Isabelle asked more about him, prompting Jean-Yves to reveal that he lost his hair as a teenager and had to take out loans for a transplant. He also shared his love for folk dancing. When the editor shared his love for bowling, Isabelle mentioned she also enjoyed it. Following this, they ate Kenyan food which she pretended to like. In the present, Corinne explains that her sister's strategy worked and Jean-Yves was starting to like her. Further in their conversation, Isabelle learned that the editor's last romantic relationship happened 12 years ago. When they visited visited a church, she tried to express her intent on marriage. However, before she could say it, he interrupted, saying he had a work schedule to follow. Isabelle agreed to accompany him to Kilimanjaro. While they were in the car, Jean-Yves shared that he also wrote children's books, hoping they'd be turned into a cartoon. Suddenly, he remembered that she wanted to tell him something in church, but she told him to forget about it. Arriving at their destination, Jean-Yves brought Isabelle to a scenic spot and took a photo of her. Just then, she spotted a lion behind him, prompting her to panic. When the editor saw the lion, he informed her not to run away from predatory cats. He advised her to look the creature in the eye and show it they weren't afraid, as he had learned from BBC documentaries. However, their strategy didn't work and the lion roared at them. Scared, the two lay on the ground, and the editor suggested they play lifeless so the animal would leave. The lion then approached closer, sniffing them. After roaring, the animal left, leading the duo to celebrate. Later, Jean-Yves realized he'd left the keys in the car. As they headed back, they saw the vehicle driving away, leaving Isabelle disappointed. To survive, he suggested they avoid dehydration by sipping from the leaves. Although they continued walking to find help, it soon got dark, and they had no choice but to stay the night in a cave. That evening, the duo looked at the stars. When Jean-Yves pointed out the Great Bear constellation, Isabelle corrected him, saying it was actually Andromeda and the Great Bear was on the other side. The editor was impressed by her knowledge, prompting Isabelle to reveal that her dad worked at a space center near Munich. She told a story about how her dad built her a treehouse as an observatory lab and set up a telescope twice. He'd promised to take her to the moon but then left them. Just then, the Maasai tribe appeared behind them. Startled, Isabelle stood up, hitting her head on the cave's opening and rendering herself unconscious. The next morning, Isabelle woke up in the tribe's hut. Outside, she found Jean-Yves surrounded by tribesmen. The editor then approached her, informing her that he had arranged a moped for her to return to Nairobi alone. This confused Isabelle, prompting Jean-Yves to explain that he wanted to stay behind to witness a Maasai wedding. Hearing this, she insisted on joining him instead of heading back to the lodge. As the ceremony occurred, the editor used his dictaphone to record the details. He described that after the groom entered the wedding hut, the bride had to decide whether to follow him inside. If the bride entered the hut with her traditional wedding dress, the marriage would be validated by the villagers. After all the guests stood up, Isabelle held Jean-Yves' hand and instructed him to get her jacket from the hut. When he realized she didn't have a jacket, Isabelle smiled at him. Once inside the hut, Jean-Yves felt happy. Soon, Isabelle entered carrying the wedding dress. As they faced each other, he asked if she knew what they had done. Upon learning this, Valérie interrupts, expressing that Isabelle was unfair for treating the guy poorly. When Patrick agrees, Solange threatens to not finish the story if the insults continue. She then heads to the bathroom to take a break. Following this, Corinne instructs her husband to get the turkey. After that, Corinne continues the story, jumping to the part of Isabelle's return to Paris after the Maasai wedding. At the airport, Isabelle met her sister, quickly introducing her to Jean-Yves. Shortly after, she rushed to leave him, promising to call despite not having his number. Following this, she met Pierre at a restaurant, telling him she finally decided to marry him. That evening, they had an intimate night, and the next morning, Pierre surprised Isabelle with an engagement ring. Days later, the couple went to the bowling alley with Corinne and Patrick. There, Isabelle spotted Jean-Yves in another lane, prompting her to panic. When Pierre approached her, Isabelle excused herself to grab a drink, prompting Jean-Yves to follow and confront her. Isabelle then confirmed that she wasn't really single. However, Jean-Yves explained that he had observed her and noticed that she didn't truly love Pierre. He assumed that she flew to Kenya to meet and marry him because he was her soulmate. Isabelle played along with his delusion, asking for time to break things off with Pierre. However, the next morning at her office, she was shocked to find Jean-Yves as her first patient. The editor explained that he had changed his mind about giving her more time and wanted to tell Pierre himself. However, when Jean-Yves was about to tell Pierre, Isabelle quickly injected him, pushing him back to the dental chair. Once his face was swollen, she ended things with him. When the editor professed his love, she told him she never would feel the same way. When Isabelle made it clear that she didn't want to see him again, Jean-Yves accepted it and left the clinic. After work, Isabelle excitedly went to the registration office to set a wedding date for her and Pierre. However, to her surprise, the clerk informed her that she was already married. Consulting a lawyer, Isabelle learned that her tribal marriage was civilly registered. The lawyer added that, according to the agreement, she was entitled to 3 gold pieces, a hut, and a half-liter of goat's urine. He explained that the quickest way to end the Maasai marriage was through divorce, provided Jean-Yves signed the papers. Upon hearing this, Valérie became confused and asked who validated the Maasai marriage. Patrick then chimed in, explaining that Jean-Yves' registrar brother, Mark did it. Corinne then continues the story, sharing her sister's next strategy. After attending a fake bridal shower in Marrakesh, Isabelle flew to Moscow with a plan to manipulate Jean-Yves into divorcing her. Upon meeting him at a bakery, Isabelle told Jean-Yves that she'd broken things off with Pierre. When he brought her to his apartment, she complained about it, prompting him to offer she could redecorate it if she wanted. While Jean-Yves was in the bathroom, Isabelle intentionally pushed his bookshelf, pretending it was an accident. However, when he found out, he didn't get angry. Later, as they strolled through the city, she suddenly slapped him when he called her kitten, claiming it was a game that she and Corinne had involving nicknames. To make matters worse, she emptied his shampoo bottles and gave him a cream, causing his hair loss. Following this, she apologized to him. However, Jean-Yves assured her he wasn't mad, appreciating that she stayed with him despite the hair loss. Heading to an event, Jean-Yves introduced his wife to the ambassador and his family. However, Isabelle attempted to humiliate him, saying they met online. Nervous, the editor clarified that it was just a joke. Isabelle laughed and soon everyone joined in. In the bar, Jean-Yves, growing frustrated, confronted Isabelle about her games, sweetly saying they weren't effective with him. When she slapped him again for calling her with a nickname, he remained calm, understanding that her actions stemmed from fear. Suddenly, the host interrupts them, inviting Jean-Yves to dance. While Isabelle watched from the table, she soon felt bored, prompting her to call Corinne. Unbeknownst to her, Jean-Yves' dictaphone was recording the entire conversation. Isabelle then told her sister that despite her rude behavior, Jean-Yves only looked at her with big puppy eyes. She expressed her frustration, anxious that he might never sign the divorce papers. Later, returning to the apartment, Jean-Yves covered Isabelle with a blanket, thinking she was asleep. Following this, he listened to his dictaphone and heard the conversation his wife had with Corinne. The next morning, Isabelle and Jean-Yves went to a diner for breakfast. There, she pretended to have an imaginary friend to annoy him. A furious Jean-Yves played along, applying jam to his face and claiming the imaginary friend made him do it. When Isabelle asked him to stop, he continued speaking with the imaginary friend, revealing that he'd already signed the divorce papers. After dropping the documents on the table, Jean-Yves left the diner, leaving Isabelle. Feeling awful, Isabelle ran after Jean-Yves and explained her actions, revealing her struggle with Pierre and the family curse she needed to break. She admitted her mistake in targeting him and apologized for her selfishness. The editor understood her situation and agreed to spend the last 24 hours together. To make the most of their day, the pair explored the town, with Jean-Yves recording his observations on his dictaphone. In the market, Jean-Yves tried on wigs, making Isabelle laugh. He then confronted her about taking things too far by causing his hair loss and destroying his bookshelf. She apologized again and gifted him a hat. Later, they listened to a band. Jean-Yves then told her a joke about Yuri Gagarin, saying he was the least fortunate citizen because he traveled 17 times around the earth only to end up crashing back in Russia. Isabelle laughed, and the editor explained that there was an annual mourning for Yuri, which was why they were there. Hearing this, Isabelle felt sad, realizing she often forgot her dad's demise anniversary, which turned out to be the same as Gagarin's. Following this, they bought some snacks and got to know each other better. Isabelle shared that she was more like her mom and that her dad had passed away due to an illness before he could fulfill his promise to take her to the moon. To comfort her, Jean-Yves got an idea and invited her to experience a zero-gravity flight, though he ended up barfing during it. After their fun bonding, they head to the bar to drink. Following this, they had fun running on the slippery bridge, and Isabelle kissed him genuinely. At the airport the next day, as they prepared to part ways, Jean-Yves wondered if he was truly the one for her. Isabelle reassured him, implying it was okay since he was the first person she married. However, upon returning home, Isabelle felt uneasy as she saw Pierre sleeping on the couch. When he woke up, she tried to share something important, but her attempt was interrupted. The next morning, Jean-Yves arrived to deliver the divorce papers Isabelle had forgotten. When Pierre saw him, he introduced himself as Isabelle's cousin from Quebec. During the bowling game, Pierre mentioned Isabelle's cousin, and Corinne and Patrick went along with a lie. Hearing this, Isabelle felt bothered and stood up to take a turn at bowling. As Isabelle was about to bowl, Pierre corrected her footing, prompting her to walk back and admit that she was fed up with a planned life. When Pierre comforted her, Isabelle expressed her desire for something more spontaneous and surprising. She then decided to break off the engagement. Months later, still reeling from the breakup, breakup, Isabelle neglected her well-being and retreated to the treehouse. Edmond followed her there, advising her to stop wasting time and move forward. Hearing this, Valérie asks about Jean-Yves, and Corinne explains that Isabelle tried to find him but he had disappeared. But Isabelle didn't give up on her search. She eventually contacted Jean-Yves' brother and found out he was staying in Bissau as a tourist guide. Isabelle went to his house and stopped at the gate. She saw him with his hair grown back and wearing the hat she had given him. However, instead of greeting him, she decided to leave. The next day, after Jean-Yves was done guiding tourists in the church, Isabelle suddenly appeared and asked if he could marry her again. She explained that remarrying him might help break the curse because technically he would be her second husband. However, Jean-Yves refused. Just then, the Maasai tribe arrived, the band started playing, and even characters from his children's book made an appearance. Following this, Isabelle performed a dance number for Jean-Yves, prompting him to join in. They shared a kiss, which eventually led to their remarriage. As the story concludes, Valérie's moved to tears thinking it was fictional. Corinne then reassures her that the events have truly happened, and the couple's currently vacationing on the Galapagos Islands. To the family's surprise, Pierre arrives to join dinner. After they introduce him to Valérie, the divorced woman feels hopeful, thinking he might be her future second husband.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.